Warpath. Do you enjoy Warpath, the spin to win skill? I personally, not a big fan, which is why we're using multistrike. We'll go over to the why in just a little bit under the skill section, but otherwise stick around because welcome back, problematic perfectionists. This is an update video to my Forgeguard guide that I made not too long ago in anticipation of 1.1. If you're just here for the time code, check the description box below. Make sure to hit that like button while you're at it. But otherwise, we will go through the actual build itself. Also, a little bit about the life gear, because I am using very scuffed life gear. And even so, the single target is incredibly impressive, which I am very fond of. Because in the last Epoch, I find that single target clear is significantly more important than a weak clear, especially if you're doing monoliths, weirdly enough, which is not something I'm used to when dealing with ARPGs, surprisingly. But yes, here we are. It is a nice Forgeguard build. It is minion based, which is a pro for some, a con for others as well. As you can see, the single targets and the clear, once the minions arrive, do end up being phenomenal, even in scuffed gear. The problem is there's a travel time because the minions have to walk to the opposing packs. There's a little control you can do with the A hotkey default. I believe that's the default hotkey, which is control minions. But it is definitely an acquired playstyle, as minions always are. So if you do enjoy that, if you do have that refined palette for minions, stick around. So let's talk a little bit about the life gear right now. As you can see, we're level 85. We're capped everywhere, severely overcapped everywhere. But this is an update video to my guide, and it is early days. We do have the mandatory uniques, not one, but preferably 2 phantom grips, because of the way that we are scaling the crit damage on forge weapons, as we are trying to make them hit-based as opposed to dot-based. I do have nice 2 of them, which are probably my best pieces of the gear. But let's talk about the rest as well. We have a very scuffed version of the Sentinel helm. I do want to go with the crit reduction helm. I just happen to have this with attunement, and I do have plans to start crafting some other gear soon. But this is just the gear that I had for the gameplay section. We also have the Loki's Hunger with the physical damage, which is not what I slammed. It's just what Nemesis gave me. Probably the best in slot axe, Apathy's Maw. You want melee crit on that and maybe some flat damage. Nemesis gave me parry chance. It is what it is. But Apathy's Maw is probably the better axe. I was going to go with the Blade Catcher, but then I realized that Apathy's Maw is much better because of the Doom aspect of it. Chance to apply Doom, which increases melee damage taken, which of course is very, very important. And since this is mostly a single target build, and this Apathy's Maw has phenomenal flat damage, is what scales really well on the forge weapons, but also increased minion physical damage, which is our primary source of physical minion damage, which is pretty good. Lots of value to be had here. Probably the best in slot axe if you can get some good LP on it. We also have a forge strike chest with some strength and some resistances. Definitely need to replace that. Yeah, the rings are already talked about. We have a nice resistance sash right here. We have some minion damage, some minion health, a little bit of endurance, which is very important, but not endurance threshold as much because you would rather have life. And a little bit of armor and crit reduction for now, which is nice until we get the boots and the helm sorted. We do have a melee attack speed and crit chance pair of gloves, which is very good because of the rings. We do, however, have a little bit of health, armor, and some mitigation on there. Clearly in desperate need of upgrading, but all in due time. We have a nice pair of boots here with attunement, some movement speed, very basic. Definitely time to improve those as well. The frenzy is not necessarily what I'm looking for. Haste might be nicer for quality of life, especially with the spammable void cleave that we have. But on top of that, I might actually just go with the minion traversal, the minion teleport, because that allows me to actually smooth out my clear during monoliths, as the minions will follow me with the void cleave, which is definitely desperately needed if you want quality of life and if you want to smooth out the monolithing. However, we also managed to finally find our very first Coat of the Erased Sentinel, which ended up hitting a little bit of resistance, frailty, minion damage, and avoid damage. So not entirely dead on the market, but it's not the most perfect piece as well, because we want different things like attunement, possibly, and necrotic resistance, if preferably. But the frailty is nice, and the minion damage is very, very good. In terms of idols, right here, we have a little bit of resistance on the poison, vitality. We have a armor here. We want double armor here, but I don't have a double armor yet found. They are very stingy. I am running currently Throne of Ambition. I'm not sure if I want to keep it. It takes too long to stack up, personally. So I might switch the Throne of Ambition for a second double armored, long idol, because that would probably be more consistent, although I will lose overall armor value, and I will lose a little bit of health because I won't be able to have not 1, but 3 idols with health, which would be preferable. The minor ones are supposed to be armor and health, but as you can see, I have not found an armor and health so far in the entire game, which is a little rough. Right now, my blessings are void res, all res, a little bit of armor, because I haven't, as well as increased armor. I have not found the physical res yet. That's currently what I'm farming. Did pick up a little bit of regen. You could, however, drop the regen and go lightning res, which would open up the resistance on the erased sentinel, but more about that in just a second under the gearing section, because I'm not sure how that's going to play out. And then as well, we have some valuable utility here with body armor, because I'm looking for the Forge Strike shards as well as unique drop rates, because it's always nice to find LP items. But it's very up there. This is kind of the scuffed version of the build right now, and you saw how quickly and how smoothly things can already die. So let us talk about the actual end game planner right now. If we take a look at skills, where we always start, we have the Forge Strike, the star of the show. We are still picking up all the important pieces that enhance our Forge weapons themselves. Nothing changed there. We are picking 5 points Heavy Strike and 5-point Engine of War. If you do have the excess of points, that's pretty much all you need. I have opted in for maybe going to Reinforce Armor to help with of course, the obvious survivability. More armor means more tankiness through dots and direct hits because of the way we have set up our defenses. But honestly, if you have other plans, that's okay. You can skip these 5 points and put them anywhere you like. Maybe you just want to have a little bit of extra ward gain to buffer your health. Maybe you want to be able to spam beneath Solarum. Maybe you just want to have something else, but that's entirely up to you. I personally prefer having a little bit of armor because dying is unfortunate. In terms of the multi-strike, this is one of the reasons our build is going to be different compared to most other folk, because we are not running Warpath. We allow ourselves to be able to stack the Forge Strike forged minions significantly quicker through means of Heated Forge, as well as Forge Mastery. Unlike most folk who do end up checking out multi-strike, we have not opted for Doctrine of Anvil, because we're using a two-handed weapon. I find that the attack speed is relatively low. Unless you hit like a massive attack speed on your Apathy's Maw, or whatever weapon you end up using, I find that not running Doctrine of Anvil just feels a little bit better. But if you do have a lovely attack speed right there, you could probably spec this, get another stack, which would be very, very good, because you get more armor and you get more Forge Strike minions summoned through the Heated Forge node, which is very, very comfy. On top of that, we pick up the stack duration to just make sure that our stacks stay as long as they can. We pick up a little bit of armor scaling, and if we do use our Forge Strike, our stacks go to 0. So with flanking strikes, we just have a little bit of extra AoE as we build back up. As well as if we are at full, we have a little extra swordage. Not really important. It's mostly here just to generate these Heated Forge stacks and just have a little bit of guard stance value as we move forward to our healing hands. Because Warpath users cannot take healing hands, because only the initial strike of a channeled Warpath can trigger healing hands. Multi-strike can trigger it with every single hit. This is why most Warpathers are not using healing hands, unless they are misunderstanding how Warpath currently triggers healing hands. Speaking of triggering, Cleric's Hammer allows us to trigger healing hands with every single hit. This is nice because that means we have a little bit of defense on Halted Scourge with Turn Undead. We pick up a little bit of the damage as well with Cleric's Wrath and Virtue of Patience, more consistency there. We're nuking the cost all the way to 0 with Blessed Parage and Purity of Thought, and then we pick up a little extra healing, which is just a little bit of sustain that's just kind of there for free. We don't have to think about it, and the more attunement we have, the better it will be, because it does scale with attunement, and if we do pick up healing effectiveness, we get more spell power, which is just end up being a little bit more damage, as well as a little bit more healing, which is nice. You can also pick up straight up upfront healing if you would want to. That's entirely up to you. Other than that, if you don't like Void Cleave, you could also spec into Raye's Chariot for a movement skill, if that's what you prefer, which does allow you to possibly use Sunshroud if you want to go down that path, which ultimately allows you to become immune while moving, which does mean you can avoid certain mechanics. So there is something very comfy about that. But since we already have a traversal skill, it is fairly important to keep that in mind. Sigils of Hope is what we're currently using to buff our damage further with Empowering Sigils and Decree of Flame. Because I'm constantly moving around and attacking, I don't enjoy having the casting aspect of Sigils of Hope, so I opted for Exigency to forget the instant cast. You can go for Polygram if you're more willing to keep it up, or maybe you want to use one of those new rings that maybe has like a really good LP on it. You could also use the Polygram for that. But as long as you have Decree of Flame, Empowering Sigils, you get the maximum sigils right here, then you should be okay to do what you want. I've opted also for Faith and a little bit of Unwavering Faith, just to have a little bit of extra sustain and kind of a pseudo death defy, so to speak. But you could take these points elsewhere and maybe get some extra healing, or maybe get some other value that perhaps you could enjoy. Although I enjoy this particular aspect very much. Most people, however, will tell you that Polygram is very much better. And it probably would be if it wasn't for the slow cast time aspect to it, because it really interrupts you. I don't like the way it feels. But if you can stomach it, I would recommend going for Polygram. But I'm very niche about my preferences. Speaking of niche preferences, we are currently using Void Cleave as a movement skill. Now, if you're willing to drop that, you could use Healing Hands as a movement skill and get the immunity. But for now, I'm using movement skill Gravitas Edge, which allows me to just kind of move around fairly quickly with the cooldown reduction as well as the passive skills. We are increasing the area because we need to be able to hit our own minions very well, which has to do with both the Molten Blades, which means we are buffing our minions, which is very comfy. But if we hit our own minions, we actually buff that effect by 150%. So the bigger our Void Cleave, the easier it is to hit our own minions. It does end up being a very unique playstyle. However, the trick that I have found, especially during running around in monoliths, is if you press A ahead of you, your minions will move ahead of you, and then you just simply use your Void Cleave. As you move forward without slowing down, your minions get buffed, and then, you know, things are really, really good. It is difficult to keep up because only 4 seconds, but if you do, the damage is absolutely phenomenal. So those are the passives, or sorry, the skills. Let's go into the passives. We'll start at the beginning. We are picking up a little bit of resistances and strength, because strength also skills armor, which is very good. Pick up a little bit of health. We are picking up also armor clad, because that's just incredible damage reduction with the reduced cooldown reduction and a bit more health. Cooldown reduction on our movement skill is very, very important. We are also picking up time and faith, which is something that a Warpather cannot use, but since we are using multistrike, it is very good. I did try out Rive as well, because there is a node for forged weapons for Rive. I just did not. It does not work as well as multistrike does. So yeah, time and faith allows us to sustain health on hit, but also mana gained on hit, which is very, very good. And then we pick up a bunch of attack speed, as well as a little bit of cast speed for Blade Master. On top of that, the Paladin, 15 points to get Sigils of Hope and Healing Hands. We are picking up Attunement, because that's one of our primary stats we're trying to skill, as well as a little bit of Elemental Rest for Comfy, and then more health and healing effectiveness. This is very nice. There is something to be said about Holy Icon as well for value, but I'm not sure if I want to pick up that later. It would be very good, though. There's a lot of value in Necrotic Resistance, because Necrotic Resistance would be capped without needing it on gear, which would be very, very good. Speaking of not needing things on gear, we're picking up a little bit of physical res here with Battle Hardened and an additional armor scaler. But also we're picking up the 5 points in Weapon Master to get a little bit of bonus here, because we are using axes, and we're going to get a little bit of bleed chance with that, which is nice. It's just extra damage, but it's mostly here for the strength and the travel nodes. The stun immunity on minions, I don't have to explain that. If your minions get stunned, they don't do anything. More health on the Guardian, and we are picking up a hammer and anvil, because that's just incredible armor shred, mandatory, as well as if we use our costly attacks directly, they get a massive bonus to attack speed, which is very, very good. I believe that this does actually work on our Sigils of Hope, but also on our Forge Strike, so that's very, very good. We're also picking up damage over time defenses through attunement with the 5-point bonus on Iron Attunement, as well as some additional armor and minion armor, which is very, very comfy. Very, very powerful node. Yes, Folded Steel, 10 out of 10. It's just more damage, more duration, more forged weapons. This is one of the most powerful nodes for us. I don't think I have to explain as to why. More strength and increased health. Very, very good. We're also picking up Infinite Bulwark, which then allows us to kind of buff ourselves with potion uses, but also we get a little bit of damage over time, taken reduction, and double that once we have a potion that we have used recently, and a little bit of extra physical res, which is nice. So we don't have to really gear for phys res. We are picking up 8 points of Masters of Arms. This is probably my least favorite thing in this tree, because it's just 8 points of strength, which is still a tremendous amount of armor, but I wonder if I can maybe find a more valuable spot for this. But who knows? It is still nice, though, because we are using the two-handed weapon, so 16 strength does end up being quite a bit of armor with 4% for each point. So it is still up there, but those are the passive that I've chosen to go with. You could opt for maybe a volatile reversal if that's more your playstyle, because then you can pick up Abyssal Endurance. You can maybe look at something like Leech. There are ways to do it, but it's entirely up to you. In terms of the gear that we have, let's start with the blessings. We are going to go Void Res, All Res. Endurance is what I'm opting for, because we don't have traditional shield stuff. We do want to cap our endurance, and I think this is one of the better ways to do so, and then have a decent amount of endurance threshold through health scaling. So we are going with health on our gear and minimal endurance on our actual armor. I could actually switch this to health as well, but then I'm like slightly under cap. That's entirely up to you if you want to run endurance or health there. But other than that, it is one of our primary sources of defense. And since we have so much passive healing, if we can sustain that, it's going to be quite tanky. It's a little... It feels very sketchy, though, endurance tanking. But once you get used to it, if you have played a lot of druids, for example, you should be fine. Shred physical res. It's our primary source of damage. We do physical, so shredding the resistances against that is just more damage. I don't know to explain as to why that is good. And then I'm opting here maybe for lightning res, because that allows me to maybe get a frailty on my relic right here, which is another source of damage reduction. However, if you end up hitting lightning res on a piece of gear, and you don't need the Grand Bastion of Divinity, you should probably try to go for a little bit of health regen, which is probably the best option. But as you can see, our lightning res is considerably lower if we do so. So just be wary of that. But yes, health regen or lightning res would be very, very good. Having that said, though, in terms of our idols, we are still using the double armor. I am using the Throne of Ambition right now, but I'm thinking about using a double armor relic. I'm not sure which one is going to end up being better, because if we do end up using the Throne of Ambition, we get to use an extra Stout Lagonian idol, which is a nice double health, and the health does scale our endurance, so it is fairly important. On top of that, we're picking up a little bit of poison rest that kept that out here with the vitality as well, and then the -1, the small ones are just armor and health, but you can also use them to finish off any resistances and such. Just apply what you need. You're trying to maximize the value of armor and health on your idols, basically. It's very straightforward. In terms of gear, though, we have the Leonine Great Helm for the reduced bonus crit damage taken. Very good. We are picking up attunement in strength, endurance, and increased health. Strength is flexible. Endurance, you could switch with health. It's entirely up to you which way you want to make that go. Unfortunately, you could stack more health through vitality if that's what you want. But as you can see, there's not a lot of prefixes that are phenomenally great for us in terms of this particular build. So, yeah, I'm just making sure that, because we're not using Manifest Armor, like some people do, you could replace Healing Hands with Manifest Armor and maybe run it that way. But as you can see, like most of these particular tools are not really phenomenal for us. So Strength ends up being just a straight armor increase, which is just very comfy. And endurance can be changed with health. I already said that. Loki's Hunger, we do want to have a nice health one on this. But yeah, other than that, it's just nice value. You don't have to have a Loki's Hunger. You can run something else if you think it's better. Like a Death Rattle is really good. People have been running Death Rattles with some noticeable success. You also have, of course, the Omni, if you manage to find that, which is incredibly powerful. If you find like a really, really sick, maybe Aurora's Time Glass, you could arguably find value in that because of the pseudo Death Defy, although I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah, like Death Rattle is really good because you do end up getting some interactions with your minions there, and crit multi for minions, and we are scaling crit. So it is not entirely without cause, but I find Loki Hunger to be just pretty good. But a good Exalted is also very powerful, so don't feel too worried about it. Apathy's Maw is probably one of the best axes you can get because of the 100% chance to apply Doom and the high flat damage while being on a base that also increases minion physical damage. So this is probably the best axe in the game for us with this setup, especially if you can get like an LP with melee crit chance on it, which is going to be phenomenal. Champion Regalia, more damage mitigation against dots, so we are picking up attunement, double health, and Forge Strikes. Should speak for itself. We have a double Phantom Grip. We're looking for things like health and attunement. in a perfect world, so stack that up as much as you can. Make sure that the phantom grips themselves are high rolled too, especially the levels and the minion critical strike chance. Those are the most important ones. Although the forged weapon duration is nice, but not necessarily mandatory. But a high rolled stats of gloves is very, very strong. It's going to really super juice your build. Spider Stalk Stash, as you can see, double health, minion damage, minion health, and if you happen to hit it, an experimental seal, which is pretty good. Not mandatory, I just have it there as a shopping list type of thing. We have the Solaran Bracers, as you can see. I opted for attunement. You can also go for crit chance, which might be better since we're trying to scale it with the gloves, but I just like stacking attunement over 100. We also have melee attack speed, which is the important part. We have also got a little bit of health, shred, and as you can see, more damage over time mitigation. You could also opt for a different base. This is one of the 2 bases you could run, but there's also the armor base for Eternal Gauntlets, if that's what you prefer. As long as you have the melee attack speed here and possibly the crit, you should be fine. However, if I want to do Eternal Gauntlets, I will probably change the attunement into crit chance, but that's me, you do you. Citadel Boots, which is more reduced damage bonus damage, or at least the damage from crits reduced, which is very, very nice. Compare that with the Helm, and you pretty much have a capped crit reduction, which is very, very good. So keep an eye on that. That makes you crit immune. Attunement, movement speed, double health, and then in a perfect world, we would get a high-tiered minion damage, but also minions teleport around you after using a traversal skill, which works with Void Cleave. And then if you're really lucky, Coat of the Erased Sentinel. We're looking for minion damage and attunement. We're looking for whatever resistances we need, as well as a possible frailty if you don't need another resistance. Because frailty is very nice, because that's just going to reduce the damage the enemy does to you, making you even more tanky. And that's kind of the plan right now. This is what I've currently planned. This is what I'm working on. Things have changed a little bit in the skills, changed a little bit in the passives. By all means, if you have any suggestions, let me know. But I am avoiding Warpath so I can keep using multistrike and use healing hands. But even if you want to use multi-strike, you can drop healing hands and then just go with the manifest armor if you would want to. That's entirely up to you. I, however, like the bone of my swords and not bone of my manifested armor. So, I hope you go forth and enjoy the minions. It is an acquired taste, so I hope you enjoy the niche brand of insanity that comes with a minion build. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and I will see you guys next time.